So today we are going to be making chocolates in the form of mustaches. Currently I'm going to be using a double boiler for melting my chocolate as I do not own a microwave. Either form is acceptable. You just want to make sure when you are melting your chocolate you only use 2/3 of the amount, and then after melting this amount of chocolate we will add the remaining third. Make sure when you are melting your chocolate that you are stirring it frequently, as if the chocolate sits on the bottom and gets overheated it could burn, and trust me, the taste of burnt chocolate is not that great. So at this point I've turned off the heat. You could have done it earlier. Leaving lumps in it is fine because the remaining heat will melt the rest of it. Unfortunately, I am struggling to get my chocolate out of the bowl, so my camera woman will have to help me with this. She makes it look too easy. Be careful, the bowl will be hot. So now at this point we're going to add our remaining third of chocolate. Make sure you stir it thoroughly and make sure all of the pieces are melted. You don't want a clump of chocolate in your mold because then it will not turn out correctly. Also, don't use a whisk. You don't want to incorporate air into your chocolate. I'm spooning my chocolate into my molds. You could also pour it over. I was afraid of making a mess, which if you would like to in your kitchen, go for it. You want to make sure all of the crevices are filled with chocolate. If you believe it's easier, you could also use a Ziploc bag as a piping bag, or if you have actual piping bags, you can use those as well. All you have to do is remember to thoroughly coat the inside of your mold with chocolate. At this point you will need a knife. If you have anything flat will work for this. You just want to scrape excess chocolate off of the mold. So we're going to dump the excess chocolate from inside the mold, scraping it so the flat surface of the mold doesn't have excess chocolate on it. I apologize for saying the word excess multiple times.
Excessive.
So I made sure the inside of my molds were completely covered, and now I'm just scraping off the excess. You want to let them dry so anything left in the mold that you couldn't get out before will now drip on to the aluminum foil. I obviously have an issue with physics, as my camera woman informed me. Now I will be starting on the process of making my ganache, which is a cream and chocolate mixture. I'm using white chocolate, and again I'm using my double boiler to melt my chocolate. Really wish I had a microwave. I measured my chocolate. I have about 2 cups of chocolate that I will be melting. Again, make sure you stir frequently. That was the remaining cup of chocolate that I was adding to my bowl. At this point, my chocolate is fully melted, and you want to take it off the heat, which includes taking the bowl out of the pot. This time I was successful with getting it out myself. Remember, it is hot. Unfortunately, I did hurt myself during this process, so please don't hurt yourself. My next step is heating up my cream. I will be using 1 cup of cream, as my ganache is 2 parts chocolate to 1 part cream. What you did not see is me making a mess of my counter. At this point, my cream is fully heated. You want to make sure that you don't bring it to a boil, because this will burn the cream, and again, you don't want your ganache to taste burnt. I added more cream into my pot because I was afraid that with so little in the pot itself it would have scalded. So the amount I pour into my chocolate is still a cup. You want to make sure you stir thoroughly. I used a spoon. I didn't want to use a whisk because, again, I don't want to incorporate air into this. You could use a spatula as well. You want to make sure you incorporate it thoroughly. This creates an emulsion, which is similar to if you're making a salad dressing with oil and vinegar. You have to shake it up to make sure it becomes one product. So I'm using raspberry jelly because I want my ganache to taste like raspberry. Again, you want to thoroughly mix this together. So now here comes the fun part for me. I just got this extremely awesome Christmas gift. It's called a stick blender or an immersion blender, and I like using this technique because it creates a smoother texture for your ganache. When starting off the process, you want to make sure your bowl is tilted and you put the stick blender in at an angle. You don't want to catch air underneath because that will create air bubbles throughout the entire product. So at the end of mixing my ganache, I realized that I wanted more raspberry flavor, so I added more raspberry. Altogether, I added 3 tablespoons of raspberry jelly into my ganache. I'm using a Ziploc bag because I do not have any actual pastry bags. It's convenient to fold over the sides because when you're pouring it, if you get a little on the opening when you flip it back over, it's completely free of any food product on it. Ta-da! Clean! Unfortunately, I forgot to grab my scissors so I could cut an opening into the bag. Now that I have returned, I can start filling my chocolate molds. My chocolate is completely set. You want to make sure you're adding an even layer. You can go back and level it out later at the end of filling them all. I've realized trying to switch hands to convenience my camera woman actually made it more difficult for me, as you can tell by that giant blob. But we figured it out. Go creativity! As you can see, the chocolate's starting to settle in, flattening out. I am taking my knife over it though, just to make sure it fills all of the crevices. At this point, we're going to put the last layer of chocolate on top to seal them. You want to make sure you have melted chocolate again. All you have to do is cover the top. Doesn't have to be completely pretty at this moment because you will be scraping off the excess chocolate. So my chocolates have completely set, and now I just need to take them out of the molds. With the silicone mold, it's easier because you can just pop them out. You can do this with hard plastic molds as well. Sometimes you have to bang it against the counter, but they will come out. So here's my finished product. Awesome disguise, delicious snack.